The Square Ball Podcast.
Welcome to The West Stand. It's our new show that's out at the start and the end of the week, where we welcome guests from across the world of Leeds United, including journalists, commentators, ex-players and plenty more. Dan Moylan with you, with Michael Normanton, and somebody who ticks a number of those boxes in the studio today with us. Welcome, Tony Dorigo. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, I enjoyed it that much last time. I thought, right, let's give it another go.
What a guy. So, fresh back from Cardiff.
Yeah.
And a very, very strange game on reflection. We were chatting about it in the office beforehand. Have you ever seen such like a one-sided performance?
No, I haven't. I don't think I've seen a worse championship side than Cardiff for a number of years, to be honest. I think that's why it was such a strange feeling after the game, that we'd gone away from home, clean sheet, scored 2 goals, got 3 points, and I felt like, we should have been a lot better than that, which is just weird. So overall, great. We took those 3 points, and rightly so, but I thought Cardiff were extremely poor.
And you touched on in the commentary, actually, how Cardiff would have prepped for that game, and I don't think their prep was necessarily all that strong, even on its own merits, but that went out the window with the red cards on 24 minutes. Any arguments with the card from your perspective? How do you see that as a defender?
Clearly, he must have been, last man. I thought Gnonto did well to actually try and get up and continue. But it is unfortunate. I think what you find is when you are in a team that are struggling and you're down there, things just go against you. And that was just another nail in their coffin. So down to 10 men, I thought after that, to be fair, even with 11, the ball was like a bar of soap for them. They just couldn't keep the darn thing. Couldn't get any control and didn't defend very well. But apart from that, they were doing great. But then, of course, with a man extra, we really should have turned the screw, and we had chances to do it. And I suppose that's the disappointing thing.
What did you make of the atmosphere in the stadium, both the home fans and the away fans as well? Because I suppose there was dissent from both camps, but for different reasons.
Yeah, there was. It was second half was extremely strange, because clearly Cardiff were never going to win the game. We should have scored 3, 4 and 5. We then missed the penalty, and suddenly we weren't as attacking as we probably should have been. And then, our fans are singing attack, 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 trying to, get us up the pitch. Yet there was one occasion when Cardiff actually managed to get into our last third. They hadn't been there for like 15, 20 minutes. And the home support went nuts as if someone had scored. I'm looking around thinking, what the hell is going on here? It's only because they managed to get out of their own half just about the first time. So it was just a weird game, all around. I think after half an hour, Bryn said on commentary as well that, a lot of the home fans were leaving. They actually left after half an hour of the game. That just shows what the home fans thought of it.
Yeah, or maybe even just going to the bar for half time.
Well, you say that. Okay,
more fun to be found in the bar.
You can have 2 pints in a game like that. You can definitely get one for kind of 15 minutes and half an hour, and then a second one, because you look at it and you go, there's no point.
So you're talking they're getting at the front of the queue, yeah?
Yeah, front of the queue, and then time for a second as well.
Nice.
It's about efficiency more than anything.
Yeah, and you get the feeling you're not going to miss a Cardiff goal, because we could still be playing now, probably. And they didn't attempt to create anything. They didn't have even a lot of, I was saying on set piece and stuff, weirdly, I'm used to Cardiff being a big physical, a set of championship bastards, for want of a better phrase. But actually he looked at them and he thought, there's not a lot there. I don't really know what their route to a goal was meant to be. But I mean, they have scored once in 6 games.
Which is not great, to be honest. And I think as well, Kanga up top, the big striker, once Stroud just beat him in the air for the first 3 or 4 times, that was it. The game plan was kind of over. Callum Chambers was interesting. I was watching him, and every time he got the ball, he just kind of launched it up to absolutely no one. And he did it time and time and time again. But to be fair to him, there was no one to pass to, but he just tried to launch it up. And finally, he got the ball down and passed it into midfield. And that's when we scored our second goal, because it was a shocking pass. And he's going to say, see, I told you, I shouldn't have done that.
So doing that, is that following instructions? Is that a lack of options? Is that a tactical thing? Where do you think that comes from?
No doubt they're a team that didn't believe anymore. Whatever their managers tried to get them to do, they did try and do it, clearly, but they didn't believe in it. And so you just see a lack of concentration, a lack of motivation, a lack of movement, and then a lack of hope. That's what I saw. There was no hope for them.
Dare I ask, do you think that squad or team has perhaps reached a point where they say they don't really believe in the manager anymore. They stop playing for him. I mean, have you experienced that as a pro? Will that happen in a dressing room? It's like, this guy's done. And he is done because he's been fired since.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's all about results. It's all about how you perform. And if you get those results nice and early in the manager's tenure, you think, okay, right, here we go. And you kind of buy into it. Well, like obviously you look back at the managers that we've had, and who can ever forget Bielsa and Stoke City? I mean, that was just a mind-boggling way of going about your first game. And from there, we're on this roller coaster, aren't we? So, whereas I think you look at Bullitt and what he's achieved, certainly in this season, it's been a real struggle. And then they clearly did a lot of formation work, a lot of tactical work on the training ground of trying to keep the lines between them nice and close. But what they forgot to do was actually engage the opponent and actually pass the ball. And from then on, a goal down, man down, that was it. So, I played in one or two teams like that where you just look at the manager and think, nah, this is never going to work.
Which, does that explain the manager sacking bounce? It's not always a new manager bounce. It's like sometimes the manager will be removed and...
It's a relief from the other guy. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny, we were talking about some Italian football and about Roma sacking De Rossi. Well, previous to that, Mourinho was there. And De Rossi got a bounce simply because it wasn't Mourinho anymore. They could actually play some expansive football. They felt like they could express themselves, and they went on a good run.
Just to flip it over to Leeds chat for a second. So the crowd dissent from the Leeds fans centred around the idea that Leeds play backwards and safe, and sometimes a bit negatively, too much for the liking of the fans. What's it like to be a player in that sort of situation where you're obviously aware of this coming from the terraces, from the stands? You also aware of what your instructions are on the coaching ground. So how do you manage that situation?
It's difficult because as much as I think we are, players get very good at crossing that white line and then going to their own zone and understanding what your roles, responsibilities are. As long as that's all clear, then you try and put all that into action. But the fans make a difference, and there's no two ways about it. They really do, whether it's good and bad. So you've got to be really strong mentally to try and ignore that to a point, and really carry out the instructions. 'Cause at the end of the day, the idea is to win the game, is to be progressive, but you don't want to throw things away either. And I think looking at certainly Daniel Farke at the weekend, he was going crazy on the touchline. I've never seen him go like that, as animated, when we were 2-0 up and they just went straight through and they almost had an opportunity to get one back. So those lapses in concentration, I think that's what clearly he guards against, and maybe that's quite important to him, which I think is rightly so.
Could we have turned the screw more, do you think?
Yes.
What? Are you serious?
not the fans on Farke. I mean, Leeds going forward.
Leeds going forward, yes. They were never going to attack. I think it felt like if ever there was a game where you can be more expansive, it was that one, and maybe take a risk with some more passing. It's weird. I've never seen people as angry at a 2-0 win, because we've lost at Cardiff countless times over the years, and this level of control. If it had been this exact performance pretty much any other season, I feel like people would have come away from it and gone, "That's a great away performance." They've not laid a glove on us. We should have scored a bit earlier, but it's all great. Whereas actually, people were definitely bored and frustrated. Getting a bit bored in a second half is becoming a theme of this, a real hallmark of this team, is that we start okay, and then as the game drags on, we feel to run out of ideas and are unwilling to change shape. And I feel like that's the source of the frustration.
I think the options were plentiful from the bench. I think some of them could have certainly happened earlier. If there was ever a game to not have two holding midfielders and put on like the Tanaka or a Rothwell, surely that was it in the second half. They came on eventually, but it took a little while. But for me, the biggest issue is not taking our chances. But that's becoming a theme which I don't want to keep going on about, but I'm having to, because you look back at the Burnley game, and the chances that we had there, and obviously Joseph in the first minute, then you look at Gnonto. You can't keep missing those chances, and I suppose the higher level of football that you watch, those chances end up in the back of the net. The lower down, they don't, a lot, and we at the moment are playing some really good stuff, but that last bit is not good enough. even for where we are. So if we start taking just our average amount of chances, we'll be absolutely flying, but we're not. So that's what we need to improve.
Do you think the lack of the second goal was maybe what kept the handbrake on to a certain extent on Saturday? Because we know how precarious a 1-0 lead can be, even when you're against 10 men, against a side that's offering as little as Cardiff. All it takes is that one half chance. Do you think maybe that's playing in Farke's mind, thinking, I'm not going to start to mess with this until we get that second goal? And because it came so late, that's when you saw the changes start to happen.
I feel like the frustration comes, though, because that game is there for us to extend our lead from the moment we score the first. You think, right, we can add another before half-time, add another soon after half-time, then it's properly over, because they're never, ever going to score two. There's always that chance. There was that late throw where it was a completely spurious shout, but they threw a long throw into the box and there was a handball shout. And you think, if that's given, all of a sudden we're in a lot of trouble because there's 10 minutes to go and we'd be then scrambling around trying to find a goal, which if we could have just scored it before then, it completely killed it. And it seems like sometimes we don't know when to be conservative. There are times against a good team, if we're 1-0 up against West Brom, by all means, be conservative. If you're playing bottom of the league who can't score and they're down to 10 men, just try and get a second and kill it off. And I think that seems like is where we hold back and where people get frustrated.
I think as well, you look at the penalty miss, and I go back to, what game was it, Stoke City, when we missed the penalty, and the atmosphere changes. And we, for some reason, think, that's it, the end. And the opposition think, oh, here we go. We didn't concede there. But the changes in the attitudes for something like that is just way too much. I just don't quite get it. And as a player, okay, you miss it, you crack on, and on you go. Whereas it looks to me that it really does have an effect on both sides, not only us. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it, psychologically, how that switch affects the fans, and it can change the mood inside a stadium. No, you're absolutely right. I mean,
this is why we were promoted comfortably with no fans in the stadium, because fans are a terrible distraction. I'm sure. I think
you two should look at yourselves hard in the mirror.
The thing is, I will hold my hands up and say I'm guilty of doing all this stuff. Completely guilty.
So is every fan. So.
Yeah, but I cannot help it. I can't help my reactions to it. I've been burned too many times by Leeds United in the past, and I am sure it's the same for football fans across the country and across the world. Because football is a strange game, can't it? It can throw things back in your face when you least expect it. But
I know as fans we're not experts, but most fans are not stupid either and have watched hundreds of games, and sometimes you can see things unfolding in a certain way, and a lot of it's thinking of the worst case scenario, but sometimes you're like, I know exactly what's going to happen here.
Yeah, it's the wisdom of crowds, isn't it? Yeah. The crowds are generally things.
You get a sense, you're like, we're not creating anything here. They're going to get one chance and score, and you get that feeling, and you just think, please do something to change this.
Yeah.
Well, Laji Ramazani at least kind of did that. I mean, that was a good debut for the young man. Good to see him score, although he could have scored another one quite quickly afterwards, and that would have been the game put to bed. But no, his first goal was very good.
We were laughing about the air shot that he did just moments before that, so it was nice to see him react so well to that situation.
I was saying the same thing, actually, in that, okay, the only way to kind of come back from that is to show him how good you... Oh, he scored! He scored!
He took it really well.
No, he did. And it was actually his touch away from the defender was superb, and the finish was actually a lot closer to the post than I initially first thought. So,
Did you discuss the angles of that on the commentary? I seem to recall that maybe it looked like he'd taken a slightly duff touch initially, but when you saw it from behind the goal, you saw how he took it away from the defender.
Yeah, I mean, it's really clever, because if he actually touches it just straight on, the defender gets back at him. But the way that he then took it away and still kept control of it, it was a great touch to take it away from the defender, and a good finish.
And it feels like maybe he's just getting started. I don't know about you. Like, that was just the introduction to what he can offer Leeds. Maybe it's the appetizer, but not the main course.
And it is his first full game, so you need to kind of let him settle in, cut him a bit of slack. I think understanding that his the way that we play and how he fits into it. But what is clear is he's got great ability. He's one of those players one-on-one, which is going to excite players and excite fans, and will take people on in that danger area. And we need players at the top end of the pitch to make that difference, because we're not really making the difference kind of from goals from midfield. We're not making the difference with set pieces. And so our front players need to make a difference.
No, I wonder if that's part of the source of the frustration as well, is that we're in that situation again. It feels like And until maybe we get a 5-goal contribution from midfield and we're getting towards Christmas and you start to think from a fan's perspective, maybe we have learned, maybe we've grown from last season. But at the minute, I think there's a bit of nerves about the fact that we're relying on the same sort of patterns and the same sort of outcomes again.
Gruev is shooting. That is one difference to last season. Like, he had 3 in the first half, which I think it took him probably 3 months to register 3 shots last season. So he does seem to be playing in a more advanced role. Whether or not he's any good at it, I'm not entirely sure yet. He's very good at lots of things, don't get me wrong, but we've not seen him as a goal scorer.
To be fair, I've heard a rumour that Kamara had a shot in Ligue 1 as well.
Ooh. Right.
No, honestly, yeah. It didn't go anywhere near the goal, but he did actually shoot towards the goal. I mean, that was frustrating last season, and I talked to him on numerous occasions and joke with him, and he said, no, next time I'm going to have a shot, but he never did.
There were occasions where you were like, Glenn, it's the easier thing here is to shoot. Just kick it forwards. But he didn't. He didn't. In terms of Ramazani, then, what do you make of the celebration?
Wow. You know what? If he gets injured doing that's all I'm thinking, and that could be not a good way to go. But yeah, clearly extremely athletic, very impressive, and my back hurt just watching it.
Yeah, according to the internet, you scored 17 career goals. I don't know if that's right or not. You'll know better.
That's wrong. There's a load more than that. I think 18, 19, maybe even 20.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Any memorable celebrations in there? What was your technique? In my mind's eye, you were running around with one hand.
It was just shock, to be honest. Yeah, I just put my arm up. It was me, honestly. I scored, and that was about it. No, I didn't think about any celebration because it happened too infrequently.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought, you silly boy. You get to a certain age where you silly boy.
Just stop.
The impetuousness of youth. The other scorer on the day, Joel Peru. A little bit of a conundrum around how we best deploy him. I don't think he's best served as number 10. Don't know what you think. Keeps getting used there. But these little cameos from the bench are starting to show to be very important in terms of securing that game on Saturday. How can Leeds get the best out of him?
That is a really good question. And I think last season, you're right, we saw him in that number 10 role. I think when he first was playing there, trying to get involved, he ended up just going so far away from the striker that link-up play was just impossible. And then, of course, when he plays that kind of number 9, that real raw energy and closing down and physical presence isn't quite there kind of either. So you're right. Didn't really work for him. But what we do know is get him in the right areas, feed him the right deliveries. He will score. He has got a calmness in front of goal, which no one else kind of has. We talked about Jorginho Rutter earlier. Well, if he had the calmness that Peru had, he'd be at Real Madrid. But Georgie hasn't. It goes everywhere. I mean, go on. We were looking at the stats, weren't you? You guys were looking at the stats at the weekend about Georgie, and did he have one shot and it went how wide?
Well, he had a few. I was looking on FotMob. You can look at the shot map, and it looked very Georgie-ish. There were a couple blocked from the edge of the box. There was one from about 10 or 12 yards that must have gone about 8 yards wide. It looked so strange for a man who could pick a pass beautifully, but for some reason trying to pass a ball into the corner of a goal completely eluded him.
You're absolutely right, and what I don't get is that the composure that Georgie had when the ball was at his feet, when the boots are flying and bodies are coming everywhere, he would mind, body, strength, technique, and just knock it through people's legs and all that sort of stuff. Yet get this huge goal with a goalie in, he just can't put it either side of the keeper.
Is that because he's doing the stuff on the ground like instinctively? He's just doing things almost like a magician or an artist would do. And yet it's when you've just got a half a second to think about shooting that... Because I imagine when Georgie's getting ready to shoot, in his head he hears, "Rah!" and he often shot like that. He just hears a noise.
That's a good point. That could be a good point. But I think the other thing, he can assist though as well. He can pick a pass. He's got the technique to see all of that. So I think that kind of translate more to just sticking it in the bottom corner every now and then, but he doesn't do it. Whereas Joel Peru does do that. And I think the finish was superb. I mean, it was a high in the top corner, absolutely wonderful. And the other one against Hull was, same thing in that he had so much time to think, but the composure to stick it away. So, how do we give him those chances? How do we get him in those areas, a lot more? And we haven't really been able to do that. Hence why, he is on the bench.
I saw one theory that suggested that maybe he's better suited to coming off the bench when the game has started to open up in the later stages and he can find those little pockets of space and they can thread those balls into him when defences are starting to tire.
Yeah, possibly. There's been a few players like that. I'm sure players don't want to be labelled with a super sub tag either, but he does come on and do a great job. But I think what's important is that if he does keep coming on and keep performing well, that at some point, he wants to play. He wants to start. And when he does get that opportunity, that's when he has to do the same thing.
But in his way at the minute, Matteo Joseph, who, and again, you're a pro, you will be able to answer this question better than I can. Does he look a little bit raw to you? There's a lot there in his locker. You can see it. Physicality. He's got really good awareness. He brings his teammates into the game, but he's perhaps just lacking that little bit of finesse at the minute, which is understandable, I guess, because it's his first season.
Well, I was about to say, of course he's raw. I mean, he's just a young player, a young boy, and he's, starting out in his career. I think he's got a lot of talent. I really do. I've seen him, obviously, last season. He was really unfortunate last season because a few of the pre-season games, he had some great cameos there, but then got injured. And I think one of our strikers got injured when Matteo Joseph got fit again. He got injured again, so he didn't get those opportunities. And then when we finally saw him, of course, Chelsea away, I think, when he played fantastically well and scored, then we didn't quite see him often enough, I don't think, to trying to get the next step up in his career. Yet we've gone with him as our number 9, this season, and I can see why, because he has got the full package, and I've seen him score in pre-season. I know it's different to the real thing, but he still makes those runs. He can finish. He's got an eye for goal, and we saw that when Solomon crossed it, put it across, and he got there at the near post. He's had 1 or 2 other chances where he has snatched at them, and he'll admit that. He is a young boy. He is raw, but I think once that kind of calms down a bit, I think we're going to see him, score plenty of goals. But I know what you're saying in that, when is that actually going to happen? But I think we got to look at what else he's doing for the side, and he does a hell of a lot. I mean, he's set up a load of people, to score as well.
What is it you see in him from a professional's point of view then, or as an ex-pro, that you say, yeah, he's got something about him here, Matteo Joseph?
He's got a swagger. That's the first thing. I like that about, strikers or wingers, whatever it is. You look at Somerville, he had a swagger. I think Joseph's got the same. It's the way that he can hold the ball up as well. I think he looks a bit stronger, and he makes those runs into the channels. He'll bring, others into play. But then what's his goal? What is he trying to do? Where does he play? And what does he need to do? And he needs to score goals. So what does that mean? Get in front of the goal, run in between the posts, get across defenders. And I think that's what he's got. And I think at times we've kind of missed that a little bit in our, previous strikers. Whereas I think he's got that naturally. So I can only see good things happening for him.
And just jump into the left back position, something you know a little bit about, I've heard. The renaissance of Junior Firpo. What is he doing now that he wasn't doing before? Is it just that he's fit? Has he had a consistent run of games? Do you see he's improved defensively, technique-wise? How do you analyse it?
I think there's no doubt when we're in the Premier League and you're coming up against some really good wingers week in, week out, super quick, internationals, you're talking a different ball game. And there's no doubt that, unfortunately, he struggled a bit, against that. And maybe even teams might have, targeted him at certain points. I think injuries, it's always key as well. If you don't have a good run in the side, that confidence can start to go. But, finally we're seeing him fit, playing a bit more. Playing in the championship, you're not going to come across international wingers, all the time as well. And he loves to get forward, and I think that really works for the way that we play as well. So you put all that into the mix. He's been getting forward great. He's assisted a good few times, a good understanding on that left-hand side. And even defensively, at times he's putting his foot in, and the timing of the challenge is getting better and better, and that's really important.
Do you think maybe we're being a little bit unfair? I say we, I mean the collective we, as fans, towards Daniel Farke. Because looking at the stats, if you ignore the bits that don't confirm this this suspicion, but I'm thinking specifically about the Portsmouth game. Once you get clear of that, it just felt like a bit of a weird day, that we didn't quite have it all together. Ignore that for a minute. But since then, the defensive solidity seems to be the bedrock on which this team is built. And it's not sexy, is it? It's not the stuff that gets fans off their seats, defensive solidity, but it's really important. It's what wins you titles, to paraphrase somebody.
Who would that be? I think it's pretty sexy, to be honest. Clean sheets are great. And if you've got, defenders and midfield and strikers and wingers that all think the same, and that's, that part of the game is extremely important, then I think Yeah, it certainly is quite sexy indeed. I think for me, fine margins, it's always about fine margins, but we seem to be falling the other side of that fine margin too often. And I don't quite know how to change that, because if you said to me, right, we're not actually creating, we're not looking like we're going to score goals. Well, we are. We are creating, we are looking like we're going to score goals, but it's that final bit. And it's not much to it, much difference. And, looking at the chances, it's a penalty. It's one side or the other of a post. It's composure just at the final bit. We're not talking about not making many chances at all, but I think that's what's racking the manager's brain at the moment, is how can I do that? Is it experience? Do I need something slightly different? What is it that I need? Because the XGs, you talk about data, I don't like looking at too much of it, but certainly the XG is always seems to be, in our favour. So where's it going wrong?
I suppose, going back to the idea that you've got players who are not quite finished, or the standard is slightly lower in the Championship, I guess you're not going to get perfection at this level, or it's certainly not going to get the level of consistency that you get in the tier above. So is there always going to be a certain amount of tension around that, the fact that we can't quite deliver because you're at that lower level, and maybe it's just better players that are ultimately needed, and better players cost a hell of a lot of money?
I think that point is okay, only up to a certain point. In that, let's just be average at finishing in the division. I'm not talking about Premier League, I'm talking about the Championship. Let's just be average at taking our chances. Then we would have scored another 3 or 4 goals this season already.
And that's the fine. Is that the fine margin you're discussing?
That's the fine margin.
Yeah,
that's the fine margin, and that's where the likes of Mateo Joseph. I look at him. If he has, one off his backside, curls one at the top corner, I can just see him going on a run, because he's that type of striker. But it hasn't happened yet, and we're asking a lot of a young man that's just come into the side. So a lot's on his shoulders.
Is there anything that Daniel Farke can do about improving the conversion rate, or is it down to the players in those moments?
He will be doing everything that he can. So that will be giving them confidence, practicing. They'll be out there doing all sorts of drills and finishing. So all the things that he can possibly do and control, he will be doing, because he is thorough. Every time I talk to the manager after the game, we have a little, brief chat off air or whatever it is, and he's on it straight away. Everything I'm about to say to him, he's already there. He's already can see the issues, can see the problems. So I'm sure he's been working on this one, extremely hard, but he can't put the ball in the back of the net himself. And so then the players have to think, well, okay, we have to do better. In those key moments, we need to work out how to do better.
This low key simmering tension that there feels to be about Leeds at the minute, this tension from the fans about the style of football. Is there anything that he can do to calm the dissent other than keep winning games? Does he need a couple of big wins maybe to pour oil on stormy waters, or is it just going to be promotion?
I think it's that we can feel we've not had what we should have done out of these games so far, and following from the end of last season, people are seeing it as a continuation of this. I think that is the problem with it. That because we could have beaten Portsmouth, should definitely have beaten Portsmouth, could have beaten Burnley, and the style debate goes away completely if they're 2 wins, because you look at the table and you go, well, results speak for themselves. Look at us, we're going to storm it. We're absolutely romping this division, even without playing brilliantly necessarily. But the fact that it felt like it failed us at the end of last season, and it's failed us a couple of times this season already, I think that's where the concern comes. So either we just win some games, we can play boring football if we win games, and no one will actually care. Maybe on a deeper philosophical, what do we want for the next 20 years for Leeds United level, people would be like, well, I'm not a massive fan of this, but while we're in the Championship, we just need to be out of it.
There's definitely a short-term imperative, I think, with the fans, the club, the management, the owners. Everyone sees it, don't they? We're not even looking at 5 years down the line.
We're in the Championship to get out of the Championship. That's the whole long and short of it. No one is content to be here.
No. What do you think he can do?
What can he do? I'm sure he's trying everything, and you're right. We don't want to be in the Championship. I really don't want to be visiting Cardiff again, Plymouth again.
If we stay in the Championship, it might not be a problem where Cardiff are concerned.
That is a good point as well. Okay, scrub that one off the list.
and Rooney's there for Plymouth too.
Okay,
so.
Right, yeah. I'm not sure what else he can do. I mean, he certainly pushed to get certain players in. We've now got what we've got, and I think we have to wait for those players to bed in and hopefully improve, come to fruition, and see what they can add to the team.
You mentioned how much you love clean sheets. Can we talk a little bit about the 96-97 season under George Graham? Because
is that the time?
That is what people used to go to the bar early in that season.
Just for the record, 28 goals all season.
Across, 38 game season.
Wow.
And there were lots of 0-0s. You played in 6 of them. I checked this.
Did I?
How do you feel as a player in that season? And you're on the pitch at the final home game of the season when the crowd are singing "We'll score again."
Don't know where.
No. That's all going on. Like, was George aware of it? Or was he sort of saying, "Look, this is just a thing we're doing," or was he just completely focused on his own defensive stuff? And he was like, "Well, don't give a toss what the crowd
This is
think."
just what I do."
Well, I think you've got listen. You've got various managers have their way of playing, their beliefs, and you've gone from say Bielsa to a George Graham, which is the complete opposite ends of the scale. And every manager will instill this into his players, and you will be drilled and drilled and drilled on the training ground. And you can't play as you want to play. You have to play as your manager wants you. And hopefully you fit into a team that then gets those results. And I will say, always a great point to start with a clean sheet. Then it's how you build from there. But unfortunately, the building bit from there never quite happened.
Yeah. But from a defensive point of view, you're happy with the clean sheets?
Oh, I'm delighted with the clean sheets. But everyone else who watch me play, I love to get forward as well. And I love to, assist and get crosses in.
And that's why we had to suffer David Robertson the year after.
And I apologise. My hamstring played up just once too often, and off I went.
We did finish 11th.
That's the thing.
Scoring 28 goals. That was the thing. It was undoubtedly effective.
I was going to say, think about it. If we did the same thing next season, if we were to go up and did the same thing next season, but you finish 11th by not scoring, everyone would still hate it. Even if you're finishing 11th in the Premier League and staying up and trousering all that Premier League money.
It's got to be a step to something else, hasn't it? And it was, in fairness, for that George Graham team, because we did get Hasselbank in and we built a more expansive team the year after. But God, it was hard. Was it hard to play in?
Well, obviously, when George came, I had a meeting with him the following pre-season, wasn't it? And decided to part company. And I remember the training that pre-season. It was different. It was like similar to in Bielsa, in that man on man, don't ever let your man get the better of you. Make sure you fight to the death to get that ball and get the better of your opponent. It's then what's next, and that's interesting. It's like the Jesse Marsh scenario when I watched a lot of Jesse Marsh's training sessions when we were away in Australia, and he would really get us closing down extremely quickly, getting us narrow, and then when we lost the ball, whoosh, off we get and try and win it back. I didn't see a lot of the other side of things in that, right, when we get it back, what do we do? How do we play? What's our formation? Where do we move? What are our options? If I've got the ball at the back, have I got 1, 2, 3, 4 options? What have I got? I didn't see that, but maybe, obviously, I didn't see the training after pre-season. Hopefully that started to come in. But
we all saw what happened.
Okay, that's fine. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, we know.
Okay. So I think as a defender, you always want that clean sheet, absolutely. But that's only one part of the game. There's the other side as well is important.
So if that wasn't so much fun, it sounds like, to bring it back to today, you're having a bit of fun with Bryn doing the comms for LUTV.
I am having fun. After the first game, 3-3, I thought, I cannot do another 45 of those. I mean, that was just a crazy game because how did we concede 3? How do we not win the game? And this Portsmouth team, I don't think were very good. And at home, we couldn't beat them. So, but it's always great. There's always something happening. There's always, plenty of interest and the support. Obviously, you guys and what we get every single ground is just amazing. So it's lovely to be part of. But I'd really love to be part of us commentating on us being top 2 and heading in the right direction, and that is out of this championship.
Will it happen though? What do you think? Neck on the block time.
If you're looking at us now, I think we need more. I think we need to see some improvement, but I think we can. And I think we've got a few players that, if they can just get to that next level, a bit more experience from last season. I'm looking at the likes of Manor Solomon. I think looks a real player, absolutely. I've heard really good things about him. And from the training ground, they're saying that keep him fit, he'll be the best player in the championship by a mile.
It's the keep him fit thing, though.
Exactly. It's the keep him fit thing. But I think just by being, him being there, looking at Ramazzani, just one game, that's all he's had. Tanaka keeps the ball for absolute fun. I thought there's something in his contract, by the way. He must have something in his contract that says every second pass must come to me, because at the end of the game, it was going pop, 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 pop. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So I'd like to see more of him at some point. I really would. So it's all these players, when they integrate, let's see how they go. And of course, the big one is, we get one or two of our players back, but Matteo Joseph, he gets on a scoring streak. I think, off we go.
And the final question then is, at what point do we judge it?
Yeah, that's a good point. I always look at early season and think, okay, first 10 games is what's important. We've seen before how our bad start, then we go on a run and we kind of catch back up. We are way ahead of that compared to last time. But first 10 games, have a look at first 10 games. We're not too far off. We're really not too far off at all. But what I don't want to be here is saying you two in a month, 2 months, 3 months, exactly the same thing. That's the issue.
Tony, well, let's do it again. We'll revisit this question around that 10-game mark.
Thanks.
And we'll see. We'll get you in the spotlight even more, making predictions. Thanks for coming in.
Cheers. Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks, mate.
The Square Ball Podcast.